Okay, so do a little bit of an introduction. Hey Buddha. So the what I'm trying to do here is explain the mechanics behind how various Ancilla stuff works. We're not going to get into a lot of like applications and examples. Like this isn't going to be hook pushing and overroll conveyor tutorials. It's just going to be more about exactly what's actually going on, so that my hope is that you can use the knowledge here, and then when somebody tells you a setup for a hook push and it fails, you can like think about it and understand it and deconstruct it and like figure out where you went wrong, or if you like have some weird combination of material of equipment and you need to like do fake flippers, you can be like, oh well, I have these tools, I can combine them in this way, and just like sort of generally be less confused. um so that's sort of my hope for what to cover today. I've been doing a lot of Ancilla random fooling around stuff on this screen lately, which I think is a good screen for it. um Big open space. But okay, so the first thing to talk about is in the practice hack. What you want to go to HUD extras. You want line 1 and Ancilla prop 1. You want line 1 to be Ancilla 0 to 4, line 2 to be Ancilla 5 to 9. Should say Ancilli, but I'll take it up with Can later. And then the prop should be ID. There's a bunch of props you can look at. I'm not going to explain this in too much detail right now, but these are really important things to have available. And then you want one of your sentries to be set to the Ancilla index. It shouldn't what? You can add more lines. I usually keep it at 2 unless I'm doing something specific. But I like, this is the setup I like. You can have whatever sentries and whatever, but this is what I go with. Okay, so probably the two things that you want to understand if you're here are either how fake flippers works, or how misslotting blocks works. So I will talk about both of those things. We're going to go over some basics first. The first thing is, what is an Ancilla? An Ancilla is like a thing that Link creates. Some of them are created sort of secondarily or whatever, but basically it's when Link uses an item or something, or his sword or his boots, he'll generate Ancilla in the world. And so what we have here from the Prac Hack overlay is the list of Ancilli. So we call these slots, the top row is slots 0 to 4, so 0 is on the left, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when I use an item, like I'll use Fire Rod, for example, this is going to spawn an Ancilli in the top slot of the front row. By top, I mean rightmost. And so basically all Ancilli work like this. You can kick up dash dust. Your sword generates a little slashy thing. If you have beams, it generates a beam, as well as the slash. Some items like boomerang and silvers and your sword charge, they generate sparkles. The sparkles go in high slots. You can see the boomerang there goes in slot 5, and then it generates sparkles in other slots. Some things like this generates multiple Ancilli. See there, we've got 4 beams. Yeah, so that's just like what is an Ancilla. It's stuff that you create. And so then the process of Ancilli spawning is sort of what we're here to talk about. So the way that Ancilli spawn is, the first thing that they do is they look at the first thing that they do is they check if there's already one of them out there. If I throw the boomerang and then I try to throw the boomerang again, it doesn't even try to spawn a boomerang. That's due to something called quotas. The boomerang has a quota of 1. If there's one boomerang already in one of the front slots, sorry, one of the first 5 slots, it won't try to spawn a boomerang at all. Real quick, I'm going to use those words a lot. So we call the first 5 slots front slots, and the last 5 slots, slots 5 to 9, are the back slots. So it'll scan the first 5 slots, the front slots, and it'll say, oh, there's a boomerang there. Just back out immediately. Don't do anything. Then the next thing it does is it starts looking at slot 4 for an open slot to put an item in. So if I shoot the fire rod here, this is kind of a bad example actually. Let me do it with something else. So if I shoot the fire rod here, it's going to try to go in slot 4, but it's going to see that slot 4 is already occupied by the boomerang, and so it's going to go in slot 3 instead. And this, this continues, right? If I kick up dash dust, it'll go in the next slot down, and then now my fire rod's off screen. So I can't generate another Ancilla before the boomerang returns to me, but if I could, it would go in slot 3. So that's like the basic way that Ancilla try to spawn, is they try to go in the highest slot that they can among the front 5 slots. So they try to go in slot 4. If there's something there, then they look in slot 3. If there's something there, they look in slot 2, and so on and so forth. The exceptions to this are bombs, which try to go in slot 1. They always look at slot 1 first. You place a second bomb, it goes in slot 0. You try to place a third bomb, you've hit your quota of bombs. The other exception is, I already kind of mentioned this, got a little out of order, but the other exception is sparkles, which try to spawn in slot 9. Sparkles are a little bit, they're all handled a little bit differently, but it doesn't really matter the ways that they're different. Ice Rod generates sparkles, your Sword Charge generates sparkles, Red Boomerang generates sparkles, and Silver Arrows generate sparkles. Those are all the things that generate sparkles. I'm gonna double check myself on that. Yeah, those are all the things that generate sparkles. There's some other things look like sparkles. This looks like a sparkle, but when I say a sparkle, I mean an Ancilla that goes into the back slots. Specifically, I mean one that's replaceable. We'll get to that meaning in just a minute. So this does draw something that's kind of sparkly, but it's not a sparkle for my purposes. Another thing that's sparkle-ish, but not really a sparkle, is when your sword finishes charging. Oh, I missed it. You get this 0D Ancilla. That's like the big sparkle. That's not a sparkle for our purposes. It's not a replaceable Ancilla. Which, again, we'll get to in just a minute. I'm sorry. Okay, so bombs are weird. Its name is Odie. Yes, thank you. So if I have 4 Samaria blocks on screen and I spawn a bomb, if I try to spawn another bomb, what's going to happen here is that the bomb is going to look at slot 1. It's going to say that one's occupied, I can't go there. Well, first it's going to look at the front slots and it's going to say how many bombs are here, and it's going to find there's only 1 bomb, and so it's going to say, okay, well, there can be 2. There's not 2 bombs, so I can proceed. Then it sees the 1 bomb, then it looks in slot 1 and it says, should I spawn? Or can I spawn here? And the answer is no, because there's a beam there. It looks at slot 0. Can I spawn here? Nope, there's a bomb there. And then that's it. It just gives up. But the way in which it gives up, there's actually more of a process that happens here. So what happens? Go back here. When I try to spawn a bomb now, first it checks the quota, which I just described, and I'm going to stop describing the quota now, okay, until we get to arrows, but I'm going to stop talking about quotas other than that. So it's going to see that all the slots are full. And then what's going to happen next is it's going to start a process where it tries to replace an Ancilla if it can find an Ancilla to replace. Some Ancilla are considered replaceable. Those are the sparkles that I described earlier, and arrows that are in walls are also replaceable. And so what it's going to do is it's going to try to find a place to look for a replaceable Ancilla, and then it's going to start looking down from that slot. So this is a little bit complicated. This is kind of why this stuff is confusing and why I wanted to talk about it. But the way it works is that it will, first we check if the search index is 0, then we don't use the search index to begin the search process. What we use is the value of 1 less than the item's quota. So in this case, the bomb's quota is 2, right? You can have 2 bombs on screen. If you try to place a 3rd bomb, the game doesn't let you try anything. So it says, what's my quota? The quota is 2. So it starts looking at slot 1. The fact that the quota and the first slot that it looks at are the same for the bombs, by the way, just a coincidence. They're not the same for all items. So, yeah, so it starts looking at slot 1 and it checks the Ancilla in slot 1. We know all the slots are full at this point. Although, actually, let me not say that. I take it back. So it looks at the Ancilla in slot 1 and it says, is this a replaceable Ancilla? No. And then it looks at the Ancilla in slot 0 and it says, is this a replaceable Ancilla? No. And so it doesn't replace any Ancilla and it gives up. But so to go over that again, the way that Ancilla spawn is first they try to find an open slot in the front 5 slots, one that's not occupied by anything. And then if there are no empty slots that it can occupy, the next thing it tries to do is find a replaceable Ancilla and replace that Ancilla. So I told you a moment ago that arrows are replaceable Ancilla. Let me see if I can demonstrate that real quick. I didn't actually try this particular setup, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do this again. Then I'm going to put an arrow in the wall. I might not have time for this. Yeah, this isn't going to work. Okay, so we'll do a different example, one that I actually understand. One that I've actually done. So when your search index is 0, if I shoot 3 arrows will go in slots 4, 3, and 2. Oh wait, I wanted to show something being replaced. Oh my god. Okay, let's do this. So I'm going to place 3 arrows in the wall. And then 2 bombs. And I can't shoot the fire rod because its quota is 2, so it starts looking at slot 1 first. I'm like panicking. I can't think of what Ancilla will work. Arrows are so weird. Oh yeah, we can use the hookshot. So I can't shoot the fire rod because all the slots are full and it starts looking at slot 1 because the quota is 2. You can have 2 fire rod shots on screen. But the hookshot's quota is 4 for some reason. So it starts, hold on. So it goes in slot 3 because your search index is 0. So the first thing the game does is say basically, is my search index 0? Okay, my search index is 0. So what I'm going to do is instead of using the search index, I'm going to use the items quota -1 and start looking at that slot. And so the items quota is 4. I don't know why the hookshot has a quota of 4, but there we go. And so it starts looking at slot 3 and it finds a replaceable Ancilla in slot 3, and so it replaces that Ancilla. I don't want to fill slots with sparkles, particularly. But yes, that would work fine. So that's how replacement works if you have a search index of 0. And this is why, so this is kind of what I was getting to, although it took me a minute. I didn't prepare well enough. This is why if your search index is 0, and you do 3 arrows and 2 bombs. Oh, I have flippers. Hold on. If your search index is 0 and you do that, then the splash never spawns and you get fake flippers and you're good to go. But if your search index is higher, that won't happen. And so one of the things about the search index is that when you do an Ancilla replacement, your search index gets set to the index of the slot that it filled. You can see in the top right, the magnifying glass icon, the little blue icon on the bottom row is now 03, because that's the index that the search process ended at. The hookshot went into slot 3, the process ended there, we ended up with a search index of 3. It is generally the case that when you replace an Ancilla, your search index will end up pointing at the slot that the Ancilla went to, with the caveat that sometimes putting an Ancilla in certain slots directly affects the search index. Okay, so that's how it works if your search index is 0. So let's just let this finish. We'll keep my search index 3. We'll do the same thing. But now when I hop in the water, what's going to happen is the splash search index, the splash quota is 1. So it only looked at slot 0 when my search index was 0. But now that my search index is not 0, it's not going to do that. So when we get to the replacement process, if your search index is 0, then the first slot you look at is the item's quota minus 1. So for the splash, the quota is 1. So if your search index starts at 0, the first slot you look at is slot 0. However, if your search index is not 0, then the first slot that you look at is 1 less than the search index. So it's going to start looking at slot 2 right now because my search index is 3. The slot below that is 2, so the splash is going to go into slot 2. There you go. And so this is why the 3 arrows and 2 bombs setup doesn't always work, is because sometimes your search index isn't 0. Okay. Oh, I messed it up. There I'm setting my search index to 0 by trying to place a third bomb while I have both slots 1 and 0 occupied, which initiates an Ancilla replacement process that fails, and so it leaves us with search index 0. If you don't understand that, think about it harder. No, if you don't understand it, I can try to explain it better. But anyway, so now I'm going to talk about how your search index ends up getting set to values other than 0 in normal gameplay. The only way that this really happens is with arrows. So arrows are very weird. They behave differently than the process that I just described in ways that I did not understand until like Sunday when I was digging into all of this. I was like, oh, I'm just going to write everything that I know up, and then that won't take too long. And then it turned out that I didn't know how anything worked. So anyway, the way arrows work is when you fire an arrow, first it checks if there's exactly 3 arrows in the front slots. If so, it gives up. That's just a quota thing. Then, if there's not exactly 3 arrows, which in general means if there's less than 3 arrows, it tries to find an empty slot to spawn into. And if it doesn't find one, then it just gives up. So arrows, if you have less than 3 arrows present in the front slots, then arrows will not do a replacement process at all, which is a very odd thing that I didn't realize until. So I can prove that quickly. Set my search index high. Hold on. Why did that come out? Hold on a second. This is an easier way to show it. So my search index is high. There's a replaceable Ancilla in the front slots. If this were any other Ancilla besides the arrow, it would replace one of those arrows. But arrows are weird. The right beam despawn. I figured it was something like that. Thanks. So arrows don't do the normal replacement process. The only time that arrows do a replacement process is if there's already exactly 3 arrows in the front slot. If there are exactly 3 arrows in the front slots, then shooting an arrow will not try to spawn in an empty slot at all. So the whole quota and replacement management system is slightly different for arrows. So what happens in this case is it does a replacement. If there's exactly 3 arrows and you shoot another arrow, it does a replacement, but only on arrows. So this arrow is going to go in slot 4 because my search index is 10, so we start looking at slot F, sorry, which there's nothing in the slots above 9. So don't take that statement too literally, but effectively, there's nothing in the slots above 9. So the first slot that it finds that's occupied by an arrow is going to be A, or slot 4, the arrow in slot A, right? It goes in slot 4. You can see, oh, that doesn't work. Even if there's sparkles on screen that are below the search index, arrows will not replace sparkles. They only replace other arrows. Super weird. They're very different from everything else. But anyway, that's how arrows work. And so the thing about that is that the thing that you often learn is you set your search index high by spamming lamp, and then you do 1, 2, 3. And then the fourth arrow will replace the arrow in slot 4. And then the next arrow will replace the arrow in slot 3. Because again, if your search index is set when you begin a replacement process, the first slot that you look at is 1 minus the search index. So with the search index of 4, we look at slot 3 first. We fire another one and we set it to slot 2. Because each time we do a replacement, we set the search index to the next slot. We start with the high search index. We replace an arrow in slot 4 and leave ourselves with search index 4. Shoot another arrow. We replace the arrow in slot 3, leaving us with search index 3. Shoot another arrow. We replace the arrow in slot 3, or sorry, in slot 2, we replace the arrow in slot 2, leaving us with search index 2. And then at that point, if you place 2 bombs and jump in the water, what's going to happen when the splash tries to spawn? Well, all 4 front slots are going to be full. All 5 front slots are going to be full, sorry. And it's going to start looking at slot 1, and so it's only going to see the 2 bombs that are in slots 1 and 0, and those are not replaceable. And so that's like a foolproof general way to set up for fake flippers. There's other ways you could do it too. Instead of doing that, you could, oh my gosh, come on. Force your search index to 0 by drowning a bomb and then spamming bombs and then do the setup. Whatever, there's other ways to do it. Okay. So now we understand what is this sentry that's going nuts. Ag? Whatever. Oh. Idle. Okay, so now we actually do have, we're only missing one piece of information to learn how to do miss slots. So we know that if we can get the search index high and we have a replaceable Ancilla in a slot that's lower than the search index, and we have our front 5 slots full, then we can put an item into any of the back slots, right? So we know how to get sparkles in the back slots. We already talked about that. We know how to fill up the front slots. That's easy. You use a bomb and a Samaria Blast, or 3 arrows and 2 bombs, or whatever combination of things you have handy. The last piece of information we kind of hinted at, but it's how to set your search index. And so one way to set your search index is doing replacements, right? We can cycle it 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. But the main way that you do it in no logic, right? This is really for no logic. So the main reason, the way that you do it in no logic, or if you're doing major glitches categories or something, the easiest way to set your search index is to put a lamp flame into slot 2. That just straight up sets the search index. It sets it to a direction that depends on the way you're facing. If you're facing left, it's 10. Facing down, it's A. Sorry, I say 10. It's really 16, right? This is all in hexadecimal, right? OX10. If you're facing up, you get D. If you're facing right, you get 7. Generally, the way you should think about this is that face any direction other than right. Facing right is bad if you're trying to miss slot stuff. People in chat will now chime in with all the times that it's useful to have a slot 7 or a search index of 7. There are absolutely times that it's useful to have a search index of 7, but most of the time what you want is a search index that's 10 or sorry, A or higher, and all the other 3 directions have that property of being at least OX0A. Okay. So what we do is we fill our front 3 slots, our front 5 slots. Oops. Oh my gosh. I'm too stupid for this. So we have our front 5 slots full. Our search index is 10. And so if I try to place this Samaria block, it's going to see the front 5 slots are full. It's going to start looking at slot F, and it's going to go down until it gets to slot 9, which has a replaceable Ancilla in it, and we're going to get a slot 9 block. Do I not have Samaria in the slot? Okay, well, just pretend that I have Samaria in the slot. And then that's a slot 9 block. Okay, end of tutorial. That's not quite the end of the tutorial. There's some other stuff to talk about. That is sort of the punchline of the tutorial, though. So there are some other items that affect your search index in slot 2. A slot 2 ice rod sets your search index to 0. Lamp does what I just described. Slot 2 powder does a bunch of funny stuff to your search index and then sets it to 2. The funny stuff that it does is actually really powerful. Powder is like almost as good as lamp in no logic. Really, really powerful item. So you put it in slot 2, and then when the chime plays, did I say something wrong? When the chime plays, it sets your search index to the same number that you would get if you used the lamp while facing that direction. So it sets it to 10. I said index 2. Oh, I meant slot 2. Yeah, it sets your index to 6. I was just thinking about how it has to be in slot 2. It's my bad. Yeah, so it's hard to select buffer perfectly. I'm only gonna try once more. Okay. Well, my index was already 10, so you're just gonna have to take me on my word. It sets it on this frame, it's the same value that your lamp would give you. And then what happens is the next frame, it increments your search index. And then the next frame, it does nothing. And then the next frame after that, it increments it again. And then 2 frames after that, it sets it to 0. And then it starts counting up 1 frame at a time. Or every other frame, sorry. And then it ends at 6. So if you want a slot 6, if you want your search index to be 6, which sometimes you do, it can be useful to set your index to 6. Yoho used to do a bunch of slot 5 beam hook push setups with it. Like, it certainly has its uses. But a lot of the time what you want to do is select buffer till you hear the chime and then save and quit. Because your search index is preserved through a save and quit. And that allows you to do slot 9 stuff, right? Selected the wrong item, but that boomerang was clearly fucked up, so I think I got it in the right slot. So the powder is a good way to give yourself a one-off high index or a repeatable use index of 6. The uses of slot 5 are like for weird boomerang assisted hook push stuff that I'm definitely not going to get into in this conversation. Hopefully Tam will cover it when they do the hook pushing tutorial, or maybe I'll cover it another time if I do some stuff on hook pushing. But okay, so then yeah, like red boom stuck pushes. If you just need a misslotted hook shot, then it can be good. Or if you have a boomerang to set your hook slot. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that too much. So, oops. That's a good question, Chex. But we can't move while we're using powder, right? Yes, you can. Oh my gosh, what a surprise. So if you fake powder, you move while using the powder. I messed that up. But it's true. You can move while powdering if you fake powder. So if you were to, for example, line up right here, and then fake powder while holding left, you would end up with a search index of 12 without having to save and quit by interrupting the powder animation with a screen transition. Isn't that cool? I don't really have much else to say about it. That's just a useful technique. Did you know that there's even a further application of this technique? Check this out. This is tech that like only no logic players know. I'm letting you in on a deep secret. This one doesn't even require no magic. If you item dash off a ledge with the bow equipped or some other items, which I will look up for you in a moment, and then mid-air you menu to the powder, you get fake powder when you land. Hold on. Oops, wrong pause button. Okay, apparently the timing is different. I thought this timing worked. Wait, is it working and I'm just looking at the wrong thing? Oh, slot 2, right. Yeah, you saw it change there, although I went from 12 to 12. What other items work? We have a list on my GitHub. You can use hammer, bow, burna, cane of Samaria, either boomerang, the fire rod, the ice rod, the shovel, or the bug net. I have to fix the save state. There you go. You can do it on any north ledge in the overworld and any ledge in the underworld. Will work for getting the fake item set up. By the way, if you dash off a cliff and use that for fake items, that's called ledge pogging. So a ledge pog is when you dash off a cliff and then do a fake item. Hold on. Oh, that's funny. You just finished the animation menu. Yeah, there's a fake arrow. Ledge pog. Okay. A further addendum to ledge pogging is that if you store a fake item state and then you menu to an item such as a medallion, I'm currently in a state where I can't use an item. But if I menu to a fake item, a fakeable item, I get the fake item. That state is broken by menuing to a fake or any item that doesn't store a fake item state, or kicking up boots dust, or picking up an item, or picking up a bush. So like right now I'm in the fake item state. Overworld transitions don't break it. Picking up dust does break it. Transitioning to the overworld or to the underworld breaks it. I don't think getting hit breaks it. Oh, getting hit breaks it. Oh, I didn't know that. Does using your sword break it? No. Why can't you flute after doing this setup? Well, you can't use any item that stores the state. So while you're in a stored fake item state, the overworld transition. While you're in a, I mean normal fake powder setting index? I don't know what you mean. You can flute after doing it. It never lets me flute. I don't understand. Fine, I'll go the long way. God damn it. I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry. Okay, some more esoterica. We're gonna talk about misslotting bombs a little bit. I don't like having silver arrows. I feel like the sparkles are distracting. If you put a bomb in slot 4, you get your index set to 7. You know that? Did anybody in chat know that who didn't read my notes about it when I found this out like a week ago? A slot 2 bomb gives you a slot 0. Or it gives you a search index of 0. Why did that not work? I only placed one bomb. Sorry, that took me so many tries. It's only because I'm incredibly stupid. But a slot 2 bomb sets your search index to 0. Reminder, you should expect your search index to be the slot that your misslotted item went into, which is why it's weird that a slot 4 bomb gives you slot search index of 4. Oh, sorry, a slot 4 bomb gives you a search index of 7. A slot 2 bomb gives you a search index of 0. Not really very useful. You need a search index, a high search index, in order to get a bomb in a slot 4. You could technically use it to, like, I guess, turn a slot 6 index, or a search index of 6 into a search index of 7. If you come up with a way for that to be useful, give me a call. Mostly just esoterica. Okay, but here's something else that's interesting. Also not super useful. No, this is the useful one. I'm going to do the unuseful one first. I'm going to put a bombable wall into slot 4. The way you put a bombable wall into a specific slot is you just blow it up with a bomb in that slot. So what this does is it sets your search index to, it's used as a timer for something else basically. What it does is it sets your search index to 7 and then counts down 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And it does that a few times, then it ends up on 7. Oh, right. It happens while you're paused, though. So we're just going to watch it. There you go. Okay, a bombable wall. I had to learn about this because I put in a footnote that bombable wall debris index setting isn't that important. And Malmo was like, actually, Krithel used to use it. So this is Krithel's fault. Okay. If you put a slot 2 bombable wall, if you put a bombable wall explosion into slot 2, I can go over the setup that I'm using, by the way, but hopefully you should understand it by now. If you don't, I'll explain it again, but I have explained all the pieces of this pretty thoroughly, I think. I hope. If you put a bombable wall into slot 2, what happens is your index counts up until it reaches 4. So watch the search index when I unpause and the wall explodes. Every 8th frame, it counts up 1. But it counts up before it checks if it's 4. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shoot 3 arrows. No, I'm going to shoot 5 arrows, which will leave me with the count with the search index of 3. I'm going to place a bomb. I'm going to place another bomb. And so the second bomb goes into slot 2, and now I'm going to shoot 2 more arrows. And what's going to happen is, well, hold on a second. The dash dust goes away pretty quickly. So I'm going to shoot 2 more arrows, and the first one's going to go in slot 0 because there's an empty slot. The second one is going to slot 4 and leave me with a search index of 4. And so now when the bombable wall explodes, what happens is it sees that the search index is 4 and it starts counting up until it gets to 4, which means that it loops all the way around. So this is a good way to get extremely high search indices. The main use for those is misslotting, but in a pinch, you can also use this to set just a normally high search index by timing it a little bit. I'll talk about the timing in just a second. There you go. So when the debris every time the debris animation changes, so it starts out at the top and then it kind of falls down. Each time the animation frame of the debris changes, that's 1 search index increment. So you can wait for the bomb to okay, I'm gonna explain first. The animation and thus the index changes continue while the game is paused. So I'm gonna wait for the wall to explode, and then I'm gonna wait for the debris to change. My goal is to wait for the debris to change about 10 times, but I'm just gonna eyeball it. I haven't practiced this. You could practice it. I couldn't see the wall. Hold on. I waited way too long. So this is going to be a search index of like 20 or whatever. But you could do something. Oh, it was actually pretty good. Yeah, it was OD. You can come up with some kind of timing cue to figure out a way to get a valuable search index. You know, the edge of the bomb explosion and walk through the door straight away. Yeah, that's fine. If you get a high enough search index, you're going to end up accidentally doing illegal high out of bounds misslot ace stuff. I don't know what the highest safe index is. I know that 10 or 16, but hex 10 is fine because we do stuff with lamp all the time. So I would try to aim for that. So something like that is good. Great setup. Thanks, Grethel. It's fine until it's not. Nobody's done any research into like figuring out any details. I would try to keep it low. Keep it under OX10 if you can. And you should be fine, because we let you do anything you want with the lamp. Dan did, but he won't tell it what it is. He told me what the array is, but that wasn't helpful, because I can look at the arrays myself. And I asked him if there's any of them that actually matter, and he just said, I don't know. The point is, if you try to stick to your index being around 10 or less, hex 10 or less, you'll be fine. If you get to 11, it'll probably be fine. If you get to 12, you'll probably be fine. If you get to like 3A, I would start to be worried. So figure something out. I don't have a setup for you. Okay. I believe that's everything I wanted to say about Ancilla. As everybody knew, nobody was going to come to this talk except for people who already knew all of the material, and we're just going to kibitz. I missed one index setter. What did I miss? Oh, fairy revival? That's true. If you get fairy revivaled, you get a search index of 6. One convenient thing about fairy revivals is that you don't need a fairy to get fairy revived. What's the line at? There you go. Death holes count. I don't remember what category we used to do this in. Death hole Argus in a swamp too. You mean like if you think you have an index prepared and then you overwrite it with 6? I don't remember what this trick was for, but I used to do it in some category. Why did we do it in AB? Anyway, the tutorial's over. If anybody has any questions, I'll talk about them, but that's it. That's all I had. That lasted